for joining the program. Okay, guys, if you got a prompt on your screen, just go ahead and push got it, and that'll be fine. That just gives permission for what I'm saying to be recorded for the company so they can view it again later. So it's nothing really to do. Well, go ahead.
You just want to have everybody mute yourselves.
Yep. I'm going to get into that in a second. Thanks. So guys, thank you so much. And again, thank you for coming to the virtual education. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead. It already prompted up. If you still didn't hit got it, just go ahead and let that go through to record it. It really has nothing to do with what we're doing as attendants or participants. It has everything to do with the people who are recording it. So it's all good with that. Second thing I'd like you to do is put everything on mute. What that does is it prevents any feedback. So when I talk, you talk, things go back and forth. It gets a little loud and we hear the background. So if everyone wants to go on mute, that would be fantastic. The second thing I'll share with you is I'm only going to stay on camera for a small amount of time. I'm going to shut my camera down, which will help make everything a little bit streaming easier. So if you find that it gets a little slow, maybe the slides aren't catching up to what I'm talking about, just go ahead and turn your camera off. That will speed your system up a little bit, and that's a big help. So I do want to introduce myself. The program today is called Gray Revealed. This is all about gray coverage, but we're going to think about it in a different way. We're going to start to look at gray as a menu offering, something that's coming into the salon environment that's going to take care of a multitude of guests. So we're going to have a different way of looking at gray today. Again, I want to say hello. My name is Marge Binner. I live outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania, and my role is Field Education Manager. I have the absolute pleasure to support Pennsylvania, the upper part of West Virginia, Delaware, and then the New York State. So thanks, guys, for having me here. Also, I want to explain a little bit about my background. In the beginning of our extended stay home, I posted all the pictures of the places that I traveled because I was missing traveling. Now I'm starting to post again because I know I'll be there soon. So I'm really looking forward to it. So today I'm in Santorini, Greece, not for real, but I'm pretending I'm in Santorini. Sandy, my friend, is over there in the San Francisco Bay at the Golden Bridge. So I think we're all making it happen. So guys, I just want to welcome you. Thank you. And thank you for spending some time for me today. If you have a piece of paper, if you have a pen, that would be wonderful. I tend to be a little windy, and I really do think a lot of times just jotting down certain things that make an impact to you is the difference. So if you do have a piece of paper and a pencil, I want you to put a $sign on one side, put a line down the piece of the paper, and good to know on the other side. So we're going to break this conversation up into two things. First thing we're going to talk about is service dollars, how we create that service-based option for gray coverage. So what we consider as gray coverage is a huge part of our business. We'll talk about that in a second, but there's services that go along with business. Then the need to know or the good to know is going to be how we make that gray coverage happen. So we're going to focus on two things today, guys. We're going to focus on service-based options of gray coverage. And the next thing we're going to focus on is how to make that happen. So again, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off. That's for the sake of speeding up any conversation. You're going to go ahead and see the same picture there. So guys, thank you so much for joining, and let's go ahead and begin the program on gray coverage. So during this program, the chat feature is available for question and answer. So if there's something pops up, please go ahead and just write it in the chat. So what I'm going to do right now is say hello in the chat so everyone can see where it's at. And please go ahead and use this chat feature to ask questions back and forth. That way you won't have to fuddle with knocking off on your mute or putting your mute back on. Just go ahead and use the chat. If you can't work the chat feature, it becomes a little overwhelming. At the top, you're going to see something that's going to show up almost in like an, how can I explain it? It should be a reaction. I can't quite see where it is on my side, but there is a place that you can go ahead and raise your hand. I'm just kind of looking for where that's at. So if you cannot find the information to go ahead and write in the chat, I can't find, I think you should be able to find it in the chat feature. There you go. So in the chat feature itself, you're going to see a little smiley face. Find that smiley face and you can raise your hand or put all different kinds of just notifications to me. So I apologize for that. That was goofy. I couldn't find that. There you go. Makes me smart. So anyways, let's go into gray coverage. So gray is diverse as the salon you are in and your clients. So the first thing we want to talk about is let's talk about the guest who, again, is coming to us for gray coverage. So industry standard states we should be about 51 cents on our dollar for gray coverage. That means 5 out of every 10 guests are coming into the salon are covering gray. If you're in that environment, you're at an industry standard. If you're above that, you're at a better space with that because you're capturing more guests with gray services. So let's focus on maybe that 20 or 30% of the guests that we're not getting accurate gray coverage with, or we're just losing that gray coverage conversation. So this program is going to go from natural to fashionable. What we have to keep in mind, there's guest is my friend Sandy, who's determined to remain gray and embrace that. That's fantastic. Look at the journey she's went through. She has grown this out and worked that hair in such a beautiful manner. Let's not forget that guest. That's one thing that we really want to keep in mind, guys, is if gray decides to be in a natural state, it will eventually yellow and it will become coarser. That's just the natural portions of the proteins in gray. So let's not forget a service called gray enhancement. So I don't want to completely lose my guest to color, but I want to guarantee them if they want to maintain length on it, if they want to keep shine on that gray or that 100% white, they're going to have to do something about the yellowing. So let's address the natural guest, again, all the way up to the fashionable guest. Now, the fashionable guest is someone such as myself. I'm 100% gray, and I want every single person in the world to know I pay for my color. I'm a different gray coverage guest. So again, we're going to speak to that guest who's going to remain in the natural state, what we need to do to keep that gray enhanced. And then we're going to speak to a guest such as myself, who's just concerned about the target color and the fashion aspect of gray coverage. So what a great opportunity to explore all these guests in between. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about consultation and how important consultation is to the conversation. First of all, not all guests, anticipate the same gray coverage. I love that my gray coverage is dimensional. I want to see more than one thing going on. I don't care if some of my gray are orange or pink. I just don't care as long as I have that vivid tone. I'm certainly a guest who really might not require the N series, but there is a guest that wants to see that complete level. They don't want to see any dimension behind it. This is the guest that's going to require some brown in the formulation. So in our consultation, we're going to look at a few things. So the first thing we want to talk about is texture. Texture is going to determine what product we're going to use. So very simply, there's a fine texture, a medium texture, and a coarse texture. When we think of gray coverage, I want you to put all three of these thoughts at one time. So again, my name is Marge. I'm going to come into the salon, and jokingly enough, I have extremely fine hair. I like to say I have 9 hair. My braided ponytail is as thick as a pencil. It's just shameful that I try and grow it long. But the most important thing is I have very, very fine hair. My gray coverage is really super simple. I could basically cover with a crayon, but there might be fine hair guests that come in, such as myself, but maybe 10 of those fine hairs are completely different texture, a completely different density, and very simply just a completely different structure. That constitutes resistancy. So let's not look at the percentage of gray being resistant. Let's go back and look at the hair texture. So fine hair, such as myself, simple to cover, but what if that fine hair has a few pieces that are going through that are completely different? My hair's straight. Sometimes that hair can be curly. So if we think about that, it's that different texture and density that's going to drive us to what improves gray coverage. So texture is huge. The biggest portion about texture, the fine, the medium, the coarse, they all can be blended together into one guest and again, show some resistancy. So let's keep that texture in mind when we start talking about all these different formulations in the different guests. Second thing we want to look at is truly what is gray percentage. So gray percentage is the fact of how much hair we're losing to lack of pigment, lack of melanin. So once we get to that 90% above when it comes to gray percentage, we get into that silver white category. We truly lose dimension at this level. So if I have a guest coming in, they're 100% white, 100% silver, gray, whatever term we want to use it, they lose dimension. It's all solid. They might not be able to achieve the same kind of dimensional look that we can get on that guest at 50% gray. So percentage is huge as well. How much of that gray do I want cover? Do I want to see dimension in it? And I'm going to remain natural. How about if I'm that 50% natural state, but my 50% gray, not necessarily is scattered evenly, and I have patches? I might want to go through and do a low light of a gray enhancement just to blend that in. So this percentage of gray is going to determine your technique. Am I looking for something solid? Am I looking for something dimensional? Am I looking to recreate dimension in an uneven pattern of hair? So when we look at this, this is pretty huge. So again, we're going to consider texture and density. We're going to go ahead and consider gray percentage. Next thing we're going to look at that's really huge, guys, is what's the difference between all these terms? So we have camouflage, which very simply means I'm going to see it underneath it. I know it's gray. I'm just putting a light sheer curtain over top of it. So again, I can see everything that's going underneath. But again, I just want that to go ahead and just be the softest gray that I can possibly do. Then we have blending. Blending means we get a little bit closer to the evenness of not seeing everything that's happening behind. I like to think about this if we think about it in terms, my camouflage, either a sheer on a curtain or a transparent nylon. Blending, not quite up to tights. Full coverage, we're going to think at tights. Blending, we're almost going to think of that kind of a knee sock. It's a little bit more than a nylon, but it's less than a tight. So blending, you get, how can I use the term? You get movement underneath it, but you don't have full dimension. So again, camouflage, full dimension of it. Blending, little less dimension. Full coverage, you start to lose what's happening underneath. So again, guest comes in, maybe their first time gray coverage. If that guest is first time gray coverage, we have a whole new palette to work with. But what if they're just new to us and new to our coloring brand? That's where this really comes into play. Texture density, the percentage or the amount of gray to determine your technique, and then exactly what their expectations are. Do they mind seeing it underneath? I don't mind. I love the dimension. Blending to me is a little bit too strong. It's a little bit too dull. Full coverage to me just seems brown. So in that range of guest, I'm a camouflage guest. I don't want to see white, but I definitely want to see it all different colors. So again, let's go ahead and take that consultation, rolling it into the expectation. So if I look at my first slide on the left-hand side, that's natural hair, 50% white. So let's say I'm a brunette or a redhead or even a natural blonde. The rest of my hair is white. I go ahead and I just put a fashion shade on there. Let's just say I'm going to go straight ahead and put 7K on the hair. I go ahead and put 7K on the hair. Second slide that we see, or second image there, we can see those areas that were 50% gray are bright. That's me. I want that. That's my gray coverage. But I'm going to share with you 99% of my guests live at the absolute last image. They want the level to be there. So that's the term we're going to look. When we see or hear the term optimum gray coverage, that means everything is the same level. Fashion gray coverage means we see the ups and downs and the lows. So if we think about that, Marge, bright redhead, fashion gray coverage, my guest who loves to be just a beautiful warm bee, again, optimum gray coverage. So when we think about that, when N series is in the formula, that's optimum gray coverage. We're gaining that level. When no N series is in the formula, that's fashion gray coverage. We're gaining vibrancy. Remember in the term and the terminology, as long as the gray is no longer white, it is covered. Think of that thought. As long as the gray is no longer white, it's covered. Your guest is now going to determine what that coverage means. Again, optimum, solid, fashion, more, highs and lows are evident. So here's the difference between resistant gray coverage and standard gray coverage. So resistant gray coverage comes from the one on the right-hand side. That's where that extra pigment goes into that deeper cortex, deeper cuticle. Single N, we don't need as much pigment because the hair is not that resistant. So let's go back and really talk about resistancy. I mentioned in the beginning, resistancy is actually the texture, the density. It's when the hair is responding and acting a little bit coarse, a little bit hard to control. Second thing we want to learn about resistant gray is we're going to learn it about resistant hair. Resistant hair has a tighter compression to the cuticle, which means it's harder to get inside the hair because there's more stuff inside the hair. So guys, if I think about just taking a small Tupperware container, and I want you to fill it up with kidney beans, just dry kidney beans or a bag of dry beans, and put the container together, the lid back on the container. The more beans that are inside there is the more resistant the hair becomes. So that means if I go and scoop out half the beans, put the lid back on, shake it, all that space in there is basically natural hair. I don't have to worry about being resistant. So again, if I'm going to go ahead and fill up that natural hair, there's so much space inside there because it's not filled with too many beans, too much melanin. Resistant hair, again, think about that container completely filled with beans. Lid is on. When I shake it, there's no movement in whatsoever. That's resistant hair. So that means very simply, they each react differently to color. So the hair that has more space in it, the bowl that has more space, it doesn't produce as much warmth. The bowl that has all those tightened beans into it produces more warmth and it's harder to get in. So always remember, resistant hair gets warmer as an end result, harder to get the color in there. Normal hair produces less warmth, not as hard to get the color in. That's the biggest portion that we're going to learn from the difference between resistant and non-resistant gray coverage. So let's go ahead and explore these shades and tones. So my friends who are new to Goldwell, now we're just going to start to explore what the letters mean. The letters are the same in Topchic, which is our permanent color, Necktie, which is our permanent color, ammonia-free, to Colorance, Colorance Cover Plus, and we're going to explore some different alternatives for gray. So right now, I just want you to share that everything we're sharing is all the same numbers and the same letters. For my experienced Goldwell people, I hope we're going at a good pace, and we already started thinking about gray differently. Now we're going to go ahead and add these conversation with our shades and tones, get into the uses of it, and start building service options from there. So excellent, and thank you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the single N series. The single N series starts our conversation with gray coverage. So I have a brand new guest that's coming in. I have, again, someone new to gray. The single N, they want to be our first line of defense. So the single N series goes in and it works its magic on that standard gray coverage. The timing for the single N is 30 to 45 minutes. So the timing to the single N is 30 to 45 minutes. Now, guys, Goldwell's standard timing is 30 minutes. Everything's done. The color's done being a color. Lift is over. It did its job in 30 minutes. That extra 15 minutes is something that's called absorption. So the longer color sits on the hair, the more color gets inside the hair. The hair accepts more color in. So it doesn't go darker. It doesn't become richer. It just improves gray coverage because more pigment's inside of the hair. So at that point, again, standard timing is 30 minutes. If it's not broke, don't fix it. If you see that you want to improve gray coverage, start changing your timing by 5 minutes. So I can go ahead and time my guest the first time to 35 minutes and see the gray improvement. Say I want a little bit more, give that guest 40 minutes, see the gray improvement. Again, take that guest all the way up to 45 minutes. Now here's the rule, guys. Color's done in 30 minutes. Absorption is going to happen for that extra 15. After that 45 minutes, there's no benefit. It actually is going to start to turn into a negative because then we're going to start to keep that cuticle open for too long of a span of time. So if we're going to extend the timing, don't go past 45 minutes. 30 minutes is standard, 45 minutes does the maximum benefit. After that, we just don't want to start adding fadage to the conversation. So again, 30 to 45 minute timing. So the single N series, first line of defense for standard gray coverage. Now we have the NA series, or the natural ash. This guy we're going to talk about in services. So NA's most important thing to do is keep the guest at the existing level and control warmth at that level. So as an example, Mrs. Jones comes in at a 6. She wants to stay a 6. That's where NA is going to do its best job. NA also works much better with 20 volume. When you start lifting with the NA series, you start to lose what that blue does in the A, and you don't get as much strength to that control. So the NA loves to work with 20 volume, and it loves to keep the guest at the existing level. Now that opens up a whole range of opportunities. So the first opportunity it opens up is I'm going to use this in my new gray menu. So far on my gray menu, the first thing I have is standard gray coverage or regular gray coverage. We're good with that. My next thing I'm going to put down is gray reduction. I just like that term, gray reduction. Guys, it means first time gray coverage, first time the guest wants to cover their gray, new to gray coverage, new to coloring. However we want to term this, the NA series is the best for this gray reduction. This is the guest who sits in their chair and just wants to erase the last 5 or 10 years. They don't want to change their base tone. They don't want to change their level. They just want to erase the gray, henceforth gray reduction. I'm going to do that service with the NA series in 20 volume. The N series, again, 100% gray coverage, just like the single N, but that A at the existing level, again, guest is coming in at a 6, wants to stay a 6. That 6NA is going to ensure that I see no warmth at that level. So this is perfect. Gray reduction, erasing the gray, intro to gray, first time gray coverage, whatever you want to call this. This is fantastic. Again, this is for the guest who just wants to erase the gray and look exactly like they did before they started to gray. Beautiful. So again, now on our menu, we have step 2. First one, very simply, we had standard gray coverage. Now we have gray reduction or gray eraser, however you want to call it. But this NA series I love for my men's coloring. The reason I like it for my men coloring, very simply, is there's a guest who's going to fall into the category where they don't mind that color that walks out of their hair to the return for their haircut. We're going to explore that in a minute. That's called men's reshade. But I'm talking about the guest who wants less than a 30-minute retouch, but more than that 5-minute kind of impact or that 5-minute camouflaging. So I'm looking at a true demi-permanent coloring. Now, what I like about this is I can manipulate this. I'm not breaking any rules. I'm just manipulating it. So what I'm going to do is Mr. Jones is going to come in, and he's going to come in. We're going to do his consultation for his haircut. I notice Mr. Jones, is a level 7. I'm going to go ahead, do the confirmation that he'd like to stay a level 7. I'm going to take 7NA, 20 volume, and I'm going to mix it up and let it sit in the bowl. When it sits in the bowl, what I'm missing is my lift cycle. And what's the biggest fear men have when they start to color their hair? They're going to see that old kind of warm look coming out, that brassy look coming out. So if I go ahead, let it sit in the bowl for 15 minutes, I'm missing my lift cycle. What I'm gaining is a true ammonia deposit gray coverage. Softer line of demarcation, not as much as a 30-minute regrowth, but what we're looking at very simply is more than a camouflage, less than a solid line of demarcation. So I love to call this my men's lunchtime special. Now there's other ways to put it. I just like to say that to be cheeky. So this invites the gentleman to come in within an hour. I can go ahead and do their haircut. While I'm cutting the hair, the color's sitting in the bowl for 15 minutes. When I'm done with the haircut, I apply it to the hair, process it for 15 minutes, shampoo off, and style. So the guest is going to return with a slight regrowth, but what the guest is not going to return with is a solid or a hard line of demarcation. So this is wonderful for my gentlemen. And again, I'm going to call that my men's lunchtime special. Please, we can call it lunchtime coloring. We can call it men's coloring, however you want. It's just a unique way of thinking of, again, an additional service we can add. So it's taking the NA series, allowing it to lift in the bowl for 15 minutes and applying it as a deposit for 15 minutes. So guys, here's a cautionary tale. This is not to take substitute of a 30 to 45-minute regrowth. This is a technique to use on a gentleman who cuts his hair every 3 to 4 weeks and wants a little better gray coverage. This is not a substitution for standard gray coverage. This is, again, a technique to get the gentleman in and out in a less amount of time and to control warmth in the hair by reducing lift. So again, think about that as that specific guest who's cutting every 3 to 4 weeks. We're not looking to maintain a full regrowth with this. Hopefully that makes sense on that. So again, in exploration, we have standard gray coverage, 30 to 45 minutes. We have NA series in 20 volume, gray reduction, 30 to 45 minutes. We have our gentleman's lunchtime special, 15 minutes. So great opportunities with that. Now let's explore the double N. So I'm going to share with you about the double N. The double N has 2 faults to it. And those faults I like to talk about first, because if you're a Heritage Goldwell user, you've experienced these faults. So fault number 1 with the double N, it bands around the hairline. Goodness, it bands around the hairline. So if that's the case, go ahead and reach out in the chat and let me know you've experienced banding around the hairline, because that's kind of what the double N does. So fault 1B is it goes darker on the tips. So as it grows out, it just seems to get more and more impact to the coloring. So if we've experienced this with the double N, please understand that that's a common thing that happens with the double N. The reason that it's happening is where we're going to discuss right now is because your gray is not resistant. So the only way the double N is banding or going darker is because it has too much to do. There's too much pigment. So what's happening is that double N is over depositing on the hair. So let's go back and look at what we can do to ease that up. So first of all, if the double N is only banding around the hairline, that's telling you it's just your hairline that's not resistant. So think about that. I'm going to use myself again with my 9 hair. I come into you and I tell you I want this beautiful pixie layered haircut. You carve into my hairline and realize that I have the least amount of hair in that hairline. So again, hairlines tend to be different. Sometimes they can be more resistant than the rest of the hair, but sometimes they can be less resistant. Also, the gray in the back might be a little bit more populated with a 6, and the whole hairline is 100% gray and not necessarily resistant. So please know if the double N is banding around the hairline only, carve that formula out and either apply it last, not first, or carve that area out and change it from a double N to a single N with the same timing. So again, what we can do is avoid that banding around the hairline, very simply apply it there last instead of first. And again, they always taught us in beauty school, hit that area first. But if that area is going darker or it's banding, the hair's not requiring that type of pigment, that much deposit. So again, separate out your formulas and do 2 separate formulations. Second thing you can do, okay, let me hear this. Check out the question, please. I'm sorry. Okay, by banding, do you mean depositing darker at the root? Absolutely. So Andrea, when you look straight at the guest, and let's say you're doing 6 double N, 6G, and her hairline might look like a 5, sometimes even a 4. So when it's depositing much darker right after you're done doing the gray, right after you're done doing the service, or when the guest returns, you see that darkened band around the hairline. So Andrea, hope that's helping. 9 chances out of 10 as a stylist, we just Band-Aid highlight. We highlight around the face. We do a face framing to avoid that. But the reason that it's happening, not to take away from that secondary upgrade, but the reason that it's happening again is the gray is not requiring that much deposit. So answer number 1 is to go ahead and carve it out and do it as a separate formulation. Take double N out of the formula, replace it with single N, or apply the hairline last. That way it won't sit on too long. That extra absorption won't happen. Second thing you can do is completely remove the double N from the formula. So that's just saying, again, we're targeting a 6 and the whole head's picking up a 4. It's not looking like a 6. Again, the gray's not resistant. Please keep in mind that the single N in 45 minutes looks like the double N without the banding. So the single N in 45 minutes will look like the double N without the banding. Guys, this is huge. I had a 4 double N 4G guess that there is no way possible I could bust through that 4 double N to highlight her. I couldn't get an even face framing on her. I couldn't get an even highlight on her. I pulled that 4 double N out of the formula. I put 4N in. It was still 4N 4G, changed her timing to 45 minutes, and the coloring is beautiful. My highlights are more even. I don't have that deep gold band on my highlights. I have a more even end result. So keep in mind, sometimes choosing a different gray coverage at the base will make that mid-shaft to ends technique easier as well. So again, the double N is designed for resistant gray. That's its main job. But remember, resistant gray doesn't mean 100% gray. It means a different texture and density built into the regular hair. Or again, it could be 100% gray resistant hair, but then it's coarse and it has a little bit more wiry appearance to it. It's identifiable as coarse or different gray. Second thing about the double N series, that's extremely important, or I should say third thing, I'm sorry, that's extremely important, is you can never time this guy past 30 minutes. The double N series does not want to sit on the hair too long. Again, it has double pigment in it, and it also has a little sense of extra control to avoid that warmth that resistant hair supplies. So that double N, if it's going dark, if it's going ashy, just keep an eye on your timing for 1, change the way you apply it for 2nd, or pull it out of the formula, go to the single N and time it for 45. Again, similar gray coverage, no banding. So hopefully that helps with our 3 major letters when it comes to gray coverage. So every time gray is present in the hair, N should be in the formula, unless you're that guest who's requiring that fashion gray coverage, something really bright, something intense. So far on our gray menu, we have standard gray coverage. We have our resistant gray coverage. We have our gray introduction, or again, our gray reduction, and then we have our men's lunchtime special. So let's go ahead and look at these unique illuminated naturals. These illuminated naturals are the colors that are coming in Topchic and Colorance that have an @ sign on their can. So this is an illumin with the @ this is actually Topchic and Colorance. These guys are superbly wonderful colors. They're also colors that were not necessarily familiar with, those who use them, embrace them, and can't stop using them. Those who aren't familiar with them, I just want to kind of ask you to blow the dust off of them, get them out and give a shot to one guest. And that one guest will just show you how impressive they are, and you can work forward from there. So we're not going to think about this as better gray coverage. We're not going to think about this improved gray coverage. We're going to think about this as different gray coverage. So this is the guest that's coming to me saying, I'm not seeing enough color. They feel too brown. They feel like they're not getting enough dimension. They don't feel like their hair is just looking in a state where it's conducive to want to continue to color. So sometimes this guest, such as a redhead, yeah, mine too, there you go. Some of the guests as a redhead really have the impact of needing this. Again, my previous formulation was so brown that I look at my color now and think this is who I always wanted to be. So let's focus on the guest that in their mind, they're not seeing enough target color. Now I'm picking on a redhead because it's most visual. Guys, this happens at a blonde and this happens at a brunette as well. Anytime it starts to become dull, I'm not seeing reflection or shine. That's when brown is taking over my formula. So I'm only referencing a redhead because it's visual, but your brunettes suffer with this and your blondes suffer with this as well. It's when there's too much brown in the formulation and just not enough color. So as an example, when we talk about gray coverage ratios, the more gray in the hair, the more N in the formula. That's just common. Here's the challenge with that. Once I get to 25 mLs of a 40 ml ratio, which means 25 mLs of an N or a double N, and 15 mLs of target color, my target color doesn't sing anymore. I want my target color to sing. I'm going to start looking at these guys. So with this, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to pick on one flavor. The flavor I'm going to pick on is about fifth one or sixth one down. It's N at KK. So guys, keep that in your mind. If you're familiar with these, please bear with me on the conversation. If you're new to these, be ready for your world to expand. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the technology. What makes these guys so different? And it's right here, the illuminated technology. I want you to think about a Tootsie Pop Drop. If you heard this before as my heritage users, I apologize. It's still the most impressive way to speak about it. So a Tootsie Pop Drop is that little lollipop that has chocolate fudge on the inside and then a candy coating on the outside. That's the exact theory that these guys work on. So we're going to look at the color 6N at KK. So anything before the at sign, 6N, is going to fill up the cortex from top to bottom. So its job is to go inside of the hair and just completely fill up the cortex and make it brown. Now, guys, this is going to be a little cheeky, but bear with me. Now the hair thinks it's already covered. The hair has no concept no longer that it's gray. It thinks it's brown. So what happens is anything after the at sign, which would be KK, goes directly on top of that filled cortex, links to it, and then pushes its way through the surface of the hair. So when I think about the illuminated technology, I think about the most vibrant, durable, intense color that we have. So here's another explanation. So again, if you're working with pencil and paper or pen and paper, just go ahead and write down the letter 6R. Now, Sandy, you're probably going to laugh at this too, but a million years ago, 6R was Goldwell's Impact Red. You sold all the Goldwell system on that particular red. 6R was amazing. Now next, right, exactly. Do you remember that? 6R was it. 6R was crazy. Now next to 6R, guys, I want you to write red with training wheels. 6R is now our softest, most conservative red. How crazy is that? So Mrs. Jones comes into the salon. She'd like to be a 6R. So we're going to go ahead and put 6R. She comes back 6 weeks later and she goes, you know what? I need a little bit more impact. Now I'm going to upgrade that guest to 6RR Max. So the minute I see the word max, I'm double intensity, double vibrancy. So 6R, red with training wheels, 23 years ago, knocked us out of the park. Now again, it's our most conservative red. Mrs. Jones comes back and goes, hey, I want some more impact, 6RR Max. Now I doubled the vibrancy, doubled the intensity. Let's say Mrs. Jones comes back 6 weeks later. She says, great, now I want everyone to know my red is fake and I paid for it. Now I'm going to impress that guest with 6RR at PK. So again, just how the intensity grows. The minute the at sign shows up in the formulation, I'm double vibrancy, double durability and double intensity. That is such a lie, guys. I apologize for that. I'm triple vibrancy, triple durability, and triple intensity. So if I see max, I'm doubled everything. If I see an @ sign, I'm triple of everything. So that means I can take this 6N at KK, apply it to Mrs. Jones's hair, process anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. And here's the most startling part, guys. All I'm going to see is 6K. I'm not going to see that N series at all in the formulation. So now I get target color with 100% gray coverage. So when I think of the most impressive fashion gray coverage, I'm thinking of the illuminated series. Again, think about that blonde who's just too brown because the amount of N in the formulation. Roll them right into an illuminated series. You're going to love what it does. I'm not getting cool enough brunettes. Roll them right into the illuminated series with their gray coverage. These guys are impressive. Second thing we're going to learn about the illuminated technology, besides the fact it's your Tootsie Pop Drop, dark on the inside, candy coating on the outside for gray coverage. But I want you to think of a Charms Blow Pop for the reds. So think about that. That was apple gum on the inside, apple candy on the outside. Same thing on the in, same thing on the out. Gray coverage is brown on the inside. That's with the N series. And again, your intense shades are the ones that have no N in the formulation. So as example, 6R at PK, again, really super, 6RR at PK, excuse me, real super intense red, 7N at BP, controlled muted brown with gray coverage. Beautiful system. Now, the most important thing, guys, and you need to write this down, and this is when we call defining or refining a blonde. These guys don't require a filler. Because of the way they layer into the hair, I can take a white blonde to a 6 red with no filler in 30 minutes, which also means I can do root smudging, low lighting, root shadowing with these services, with these colors directly on top of that overlightened hair, not requiring a filler. So no off toning, no weird shade as an end result. The illuminated technology is amazing. So for you guys who are using it, thank you for letting me celebrate it again. Maybe you've learned something a little bit different about it. For those guys who are not familiar with it, blow off the dust, get it out there and start using it for your gray coverage. It's amazing. Now, before we go any farther, I will share with you, when you mix up the illuminated technology, please don't let it go to the party with anyone else that doesn't have an @ sign in the formula. So if I mix 7N or 7NN in with it as an example, I am not improving gray coverage. I'm breaking the technology and making it a regular color. So if you want this guy to be who it is, only mix it with its friends. So let's say I want to go ahead and 7N at RR isn't impact enough for me red-wise. Add a little bit of 7RR at RR to the formula. Continue to mix them with each other. They will perform better and your gray coverage will improve from there. Anything else you add into it reduces its intensity and takes away from why we're using it. So hopefully that's a good opportunity. Again, N series is for gray coverage. The other ones are for that max intense feeling to it or that triple intense feeling to it. They only want to go to the party with each other. They do not require a filler and their timing is anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. So please, and again, thank you for letting me speak to these guys. These are fantastic. And if you're not shadowing or root smudging with these guys, in your Cover Plus, which is your pink brand, your 8N at BS and your 6N at GB are the two most fantastic smudge and shadow colors you'll find. And we have a question there. What if it's too intense? Too intense, what would you mix with 6N at KK? Fantastic question. So Sarah, what I would do is there are 2 adjuster colors that I put in this system. These colors, you can add 5 mLs to any formulation to help reduce that. And that's your 7N at BP and your 5N at BP. So if you think 6N at KK is too intensive, just go ahead and put 5 mLs of 5N at BP or 5 mLs of 7N at BP, and that will take that brightness right away. So that's a wonderful way to adjust that as an end result. So thank you for that question. And did that answer that? Oh, wonderful. Excellent with that. So guys, with that, I just want to talk about one thing that's not printed on the screen. And I'm going to call it making space. So bear with me on this and I'll fill in the gaps from there. I have a brand new guest that comes into the salon. Never met them before in my life. They're coming in for great coverage or just coloring in general. I need you to know there's something called space inside the hair. So two things can't occupy the same space. So that means if my hair is filled up with a competitor's color, I go ahead and put my color on top of it. If there's no space, my color slides off. So that's what space means. There's no room in the hair for extra pigments to be in artificially. When I go ahead and use illuminated technology, we just had that question, what if it happens to be too bright? I can go ahead and add 5 mLs of the 5 NFBP or 7 NFBP to offset that. But what about the guest who loves that intensity? They look at that and that brightness is their jam. That means that the mid-shaft ends might appear a little bit too brown. So my old gray coverage 6N, 6K, compared to my new gray coverage 6N at KK, might appear a little bit dull. So this making space in the hair or making room in the hair and removing tint by one level, we're going to do with what's called a blonding cream polish. So all of my friends who are familiar with this, again, bear with me. Okay, what are good root smudges? Let me go back to that again very quickly. So Christy, your question was, what are the two formulations? The first one, and again, both of these are in your Colorance Cover Plus or your pink brand, would be 8N at BS. It's a beautiful, cool shadow, and it's a lovely low light. The second one, also in my Colorance Cover Plus brand, would be 6N at GB. That's a gorgeous, true, deep smudge, not necessarily in a cool tone, but again, if you want that cool 8 level, 8N at BS, you want that warm 6 level, 6N at GB. Don't forget to add your pure pigments into that, and we'll talk about them in a minute. So hopefully that answered that question. So again, what I'm going to go to back next is my blonding cream polish. Again, if you're familiar, wonderful. If not, then let's move from there. So blonding cream polish very simply is using 40 mLs of 40 volume and 20 mLs of blonding cream, as a reducer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the 40 volume, I'm going to mix the blonding cream, and I'm going to blend it together in a bowl. I'm going to find an old paddle or an old vent brush, and I'm going to lather up the bristles. I'm going to section the hair, and from the tips of the hair, I'm going to drag this blonding cream through the mid-shaft ends. Now, I'm not going to focus on healthy hair. I'm just going to focus on the deposited mid-shaft ends. I'm going to do this polish all over the head. I'm going to leave it on the hair for 15 minutes, and I'm going to rinse it off the hair. What this does is it lifts tint off the hair by one level, or it's a very soft minor corrective removal. So again, blonding cream of 40 volume, 40 mLs of blonding cream, 40 mLs of 40 volume, 20 mLs of blonding cream, mix in your bowl, paint on your brush from the tips of the hair up to the regrowth, process 15 minutes, shampoo off, dry, and proceed with your color. That is an upgrade for a brand new guest. A brand new guest comes into the salon. I need to make space in the hair. I need to cleanse my palette, make space for me. I'm going to go ahead and do that before my service. Add that into your timing. Cleansing the palette is going to change the whole way your brand new guest is going to perceive their color. But what about if I have an existing guest? I have a guest who I just want to go ahead and do this all in the length of a retouch. I don't want to spend the extra 15 to 20 minutes to do it ahead of time, shampoo out and dry. We can make this part of a color journey, still an upgrade, but the timing will be different. So let's go ahead and let's transfer to the new formulation at the regrowth. 6N at KK, we'll talk about the developer in a minute. We're going to go ahead and apply that. Then we're going to do our 40 volume blonding cream in a highlight, either down the part, face framing, but do this partial highlight with this 40 volume and blonding cream while the new formulation is on the regrowth. When your formulation for the regrowth is ready to come off, 30 to 45 minutes, we go ahead, pull the foils off at the same time and shampoo. Now here's the best part. All it's really going to do is bump that brown or that tint off the hair by a level. So 9 chances out of 10, you won't have to Colorance on top. That beauty or that warm tone will be underneath it. But let's just say at that tone, you want to go ahead and see a little bit more impact. Colorance for 5 to 15 minutes on top will be wonderful. So again, you can do it as part of their journey. And I call this my highlight, low light journey. So they'll still maintain a little bit of depth, but they'll have that dimension and that removal in between. So they'll see sparkly pieces and they'll see the pieces of the original. Next time the guest comes back, do the upgrade again. It usually takes about 3 of these face framing partial highlights to get all that brown off the hair. Or again, you can do it in the beginning, removal, and then change into the formulation from there. So when we think about doing that blending cream polish, palette cleanse, whatever we want to call it, it's all meant to remove brown out off the hair for an existing color guest, but it's meant to go ahead and give space when I have a brand new color guest. So remember, this is 40 volume, blending cream, painted on the hair or foiled within the hair for about 15 minutes. And again, if you choose to overlay on top, 5 to 15 minutes with colorants. If not, you'll have a beautiful warm tone to work off of. Now, again, if there's a cool tone anticipated as the end result, you'll know you'll have to overlay. So with that, just nice way of merging into a new color flavor or a new generation of coloring. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the things that are added into our formulations. So guys, the first thing I want to share with you, and it's something that's super important, we recommend to never use the N or double N alone. So again, never use the N or double N alone. They want to hang out with someone else. Reason being is I want you to think of hair like a jar. Then I want you to take that jar and I want you to fill it with honey. Then I want to take all kinds of straws and push it into the hair, into the jar. So again, I have a jar filled with honey and it's filled with straws. That's actually what the inside of the hair looks like. What happens if I use the N or double N by itself, it takes care of the honey and the straws, but it does nothing for the jar. So when I look at that guest, the gray looks dull, it looks 1 number lighter. Sometimes it almost seems like it's not covered. It just seems so translucent. That's because the N or the double N isn't doing anything to the jar. So the maximum amount of N or double N in a formula is 35 mLs. That opens up 5 mLs for a B or a G for shine. Now, guys, 5 mLs will not influence your end result. All it's adding is shine and coloring the glass jar. So again, max amount of N or double N is 35 mLs, 5 mLs open again for that B or the G for shine. Knowing a little bit about Goldwell, the letter G has less orange than the B. So if you're going to choose to put 7B in the formulation, you might make it a little bit warmer. If you're choosing to put 7G in the formulation, you're going to keep it a little bit more neutral. So please remember, N series and double N don't want to go to the party alone. They need 5 mLs of someone else just to make sure that that go ahead is very simply shiny as an end result. Okay, so I've got a message here. Let me check out what the message is saying. Okay, go ahead and Sandy is recommending that everyone go ahead and take a screenshot of this just to kind of get a good snapshot. And I think, yep, that went to everyone, Sandy. Thank you so much. And let me check if I'm missing anything else on that. Okay, we got the root smudges and Andrea. Excellent. Thank you so much. I hope that's a big help because right now I should be solving a couple problems with you. The banding with the double N series. I should be solving that you can leave the single N on a little bit longer. I should be solving the fact sometimes when it looks translucent. So hopefully that's a big help. I use NN alone a lot now and I will incorporate G and B to enhance it. Excellent. Exactly, because what's happening is the gray coverage is fantastic. You're just looking through a glass jar. You're not seeing what's happening inside. Get that glass jar covered and it will change it dramatically. And for us who've been hanging around for a long, long time, a million years ago, when we wanted to improve gray coverage, we made the formulation warmer. Same reason, it helped with the cuticle. So thank you, Andrea. I hope that's going to be a big help with that. So please remember, okay. So please remember when we're looking at the G has a little bit less warmth than the B. The B is a little bit more warm. What was the B color? That would be, as an example, you can use 4B, 5B, but any B that you can add into the formulation, Janny. I hope that helped. So what's that sharing with you? It doesn't matter what B or what G, the B is always going to be a little bit warmer than the G. So hopefully that helped with that. And let me know if that answered that question accurately or if I need to go back to that. All right, I'll keep my eye on the chat. Always, guys, keep in mind the NA series can be used alone without a problem because that carrier of that A. But remember, NA just wants to stick with 20 volume. That's where it does its best. Remember, the A series job is to remove orange, lifting or depositing. P series job is to remove gold, lifting and depositing. When we think of that letter K, I want you to think of a cinnamon stick. I want you to think of orange in the direction of brown. just a natural copper. Again, for example, 5NN, 20 volume. Yes, you can use 5 mLs of 5B, or if we have it, 5 mLs of 5G or 6G, as long as you put 5 mLs of a B or a G in the formulation. Okay, does that make sense? So thank you. Excellent with that. Remember your B, your darker levels are warm. 8B itself tends to be a little bit on the cool or the neutral side. Then we have violet. 10V is our toner for yellow. The remaining Vs are the color purple. R is the color red, cool red. O, favorite thing in the world. O very simply is orange in the direction of yellow, like a little tangerine or a halo. Remember, K is orange in the direction of brown. Again, we have the letter S. Now, silver, guys, please don't get me wrong. Silver is not actually silver. Silver is teal or blue-green. So if you see the SB series, don't think of it as a silver series. Think about it as a blue-green series to help control. So the SB series is wonderful. It loves to hang out with a lot of people. SB is wonderful in your reds to help control brassiness. It's wonderful in your cool reds, such as a V or an R, to help keep it cooler. So SB, I love to call insurance control. It loves to hang out with a lot of people. If you're looking to make very good silvers and you're looking to make very good grays, we're going to look a little bit at a lumen, but SB, if you guys want to write down this formulation, 8SB equal parts with 10BS will make a Colorance 20-minute silver. So 8SB, 10 mLs, 10BS, 10 mLs, 40 mLs of blue lotion will make a 20-minute Colorance silver, which means it needs 20 minutes to develop into the silver and deposit that tone. 25 minutes will be maximum durability. So again, 10 mLs of 8SB, 10 mLs of 10BS, 40 mLs of blue lotion is a great, great Colorance silver. Remember, it takes 20 minutes to make that happen. M is matte, that equals green. Anytime my guest has a natural level 3, 4, and 5, am I going lighter? That M's job is to go in there and get rid of all that red orange in the hair. And then we have the letter C. Whenever you see C, it means 2 blues. So CA is actually 3 blues. We have one of those guys, 8CA. 8CA is meant to make a smoky blonde. So that's the blonde who actually wants to see deposit in their color. They want that cool tone. So what about that guest that wants a little bit more bluing to their silver? Then I'm going to go ahead and use 10 mLs of 8CA Colorance, 10 mLs of 10BS Colorance, again, 40 mLs of lotion, and that will give me a bluer silver. So the 8SB silver, a little bit more pewtery, 8CA silver, a little bit more blue. So think about that. If I have a guest who has a lot of warmth, I want my blue silver. If I have a guest that doesn't have a lot of warmth, I can use my 8SB silver. So if I think about that, that gives us 2 opportunities to also do gray enhancement, which is very simply keeping the guest gray at a natural state and making sure it doesn't yellow. We'll be exploring that in a second. So guys, we're hitting the 1-hour mark with the class. I hope we're going at a good pace. So if there's any questions, please pull them out in the chat. I've been kind of keeping my eye on everything. So I just want to know that we're going on at a good pace and having some great information here. So please go ahead, reach out in the chat and let me know how we're doing so far. So the next thing we're going to talk about is formulation. So formulation, not necessarily, we're going to stick to the generals because we know now we don't have to put the N in the formulation to cover gray. But what we're also going to talk about is that standard use of it as well. Remember, we always determine that's existing level. That's where the guest lives. That's where they're coming from. Target level is the number they want to be. Target color is what we're going to choose. Remember, sometimes it's going to be straight target color. Optimum gray coverage, we're going to have an N or a double N in that formulation. Natural contributing pigment is bringing warmth to the party. What happens is that end result and the percentage of gray. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through and explore what we can use to create this excellence when it comes to these gray formulations. So far we have standard gray coverage, we have resistant gray coverage, and let's add to resistant solid gray coverage. How about that guest who just doesn't want to see a lick of movement in their hair? That's where the double N is really good for, solid gray coverage as well. My suggestion, if my guest is looking for solid gray coverage, maybe not necessarily super concerned about the depth to it, just keep in mind solid gray coverage might come on non-resistant hair. You might want to do a little formulation adjustment from there. So again, we have standard gray coverage, resistant gray coverage, solid gray coverage, gray enhancement. We have our men's lunchtime special. Then we had fashion gray coverage. So let's go ahead and start adding to that list. So let's talk a little bit about pure pigments. If these guys are new to you, these are the most expressive things possible. Today, I'm actually only going to focus on two of these guys. So I'm going to focus on yellow and I'm going to focus on orange. First of all, because yellow is just liquid sunshine. You could pour a half a bottle of yellow into a blonde before it actually becomes a true color yellow. So what I want you to think about with yellow is 2 drops of yellow in any single end series. What it's going to do is add shine, make it appear a little bit more natural, and give a little bit more reality to it. Because sometimes, again, our guests just start to become not so reflective with gray coverage. It's not a negative. Oh, I'm obsessed with yellow too, Sarah. Thank you so much. I put yellow in my toners. I could put it in my express toners. Yellow to me is just should be in a vat with a straw pumped right into my formulations. I love yellow. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and just try putting 2 drops of yellow into any of your single end series formulation. It is just going to be liquid sunshine and it's going to radiate health into that hair. But then I want you to think about it in a little bit different direction. That anytime there's a double N in the formula, I go with 2 yellow and believe it or not, guys, 2 oranges. So anytime a double N in my formula, 2 yellow, 2 oranges. Now, don't be afraid of orange. Orange is a little bit more intense than yellow, but again, you need a pretty good deal of orange to see orange. I'm looking at natural warmth. I'm not even talking about the guest that's looking for a cool tone. I love to see myself a jade brown, that slick, almost Kardashian brown, which I think is absolutely outstanding, but I still want to see it shiny. So the point is when I'm adding 2 drops yellow, 2 drops orange, if you're afraid of the orange, pull the orange out and maybe do 3 yellows in your double N series. Just start building this natural reflection and natural warmth into your gray coverage to improve it. The last thing we want gray coverage to do is be dull. The last thing you want a redhead to be is dull. Even a cool brown doesn't want to be dull. They still want to have that natural warmth or that natural reflection and shine. So those are the 2 concentrates I'm going to speak to today. I'm going to speak to using 2 drops of yellow in any single N series formula. And I'm going to encourage to use either 2 drops yellow and 2 drops orange, or maybe 3 drops yellow and maybe 1 orange if you're brave in your double Ns. So just start incorporating these to begin with. That's going to change so much of what you do when it comes to that natural health, when it comes to your gray coverage. So that's my suggestion with your concentrated tones and the 2 I want to focus on. Please don't forget, if you're going to try and make Kleenex white, Mrs. Jones comes in and she's just obsessed with Kleenex white. Guys, please remember Kleenex white is not absence of pigments. It's a controlled deposit. So if Mrs. Jones truly wants to be in that whitened state, my recommended formulation is 10B colorants, 10P colorants, equal parts. I do 2 drops blue pure pigments, 2 drops green pure pigments, and that gives me the perfect Kleenex on yellow and gold. So think about that. 10V gets rid of yellow, 10P gets rid of gold. If I'm adding my blue drops, I'm getting rid of my orange. If I'm adding green drops, I'm getting rid of my red orange. There is nothing left in that formulation that can make anything but a Kleenex white or absence of control, or again, excessive control. So if I think about that, love my pure pigments in my gray coverage, but don't forget that 10B, 2 drops blue, 2 drops green, on top of that golden yellow guest, you're going to get a beautiful, cool Kleenex white as an end result. Absolutely, would love to repeat that formula. So it would be 40 mLs of your blue Colorance lotion. It would be 10 mLs of 10P, 10 mLs of 10V as in Victor, and I would do 2 drops of pure pigment blue and 2 drops of pure pigment green, and that will control and create white on yellows and golds. Absolutely beautiful. So hopefully that helped with the repeat of the formula. Excellent. Okay, so guys, let's not just forget about saturation. Saturation is essential. So the more I saturate, the better my gray coverage will improve. So let's say Mrs. Jones comes in, and I apologize for the term because I don't have it. It's out of pure jealousy. She has gorilla hair. She has more hair than your dog. Oh, what I would do with a weekend with that. But what we can do is we can go ahead and add a couple of mils of thickener in it to get that just more saturated base. So if you feel you want a little bit heavier deposit, you want the color to just absorb in the hair a little bit longer, don't be fearful of putting thickener in your formulation. So in a standard formulation of your decolorizer or a standard formulation of just your Topchic color, go ahead and pretend you're a barista at Starbucks, draw a circle in the bowl and put a star in between that circle, mix it together, give it a couple seconds, and that's perfect for creating just a little bit thicker consistency in your decolorizing and your color. So remember, if you're going to add thickener, mix up your formulation, either your decolorizer, your colorants, your Topchic, mix it all up. And if you're using a bowl, go ahead and do a circle and do a star on top of that. Mix it together thoroughly, give it a minute or a second or two, excuse me, not a minute or two. Let it thicken up and you'll love the new saturation to that. If you're doing colorants in a bottle, do the best you can to make your circle and a tiny little star and shake. And that is just the perfect amount to have with the thickener. So thank you for that. So guys, now we're going to X out of everything that we talked about. We talked about consultation, resistancy. We talked about what constitutes deposit using the N series. We talked about all the different letters and tones. We talked about all the things we can do to enhance and add to these formulations. So let's go ahead and talk about the brands we're going to use. So remember, so far we got standard gray coverage, 30 to 45 minutes. Resistant or solid gray coverage, 30 minutes only. Gray reduction, 30 to 45 minutes. Men's lunchtime special, 15 minutes. Fashion gray coverage, 30 to 45 minutes. Now let's start to explore some different options. So the first thing we have is Men Reshade. This is our 5-minute way to very simply just reduce gray. But this is the guy that I'll share with you every time my guest returns. A lot of this walks out of their hair. My guest is not returning with a solid line of demarcation. It's a very scattered line of demarcation. They are CAs or they are cool tones. They do give a great deal of deposit, but remember, this is a 5-minute blending or a 5-minute harmony or softening of the gray. So this is perfect with the gentleman who wants to ease up on the hairline. This is perfect with the gentleman who wants to reduce the amount of gray. But remember, if my guest requires more gray coverage, don't forget about our 15-minute lunchtime special with the NA series in 20 volume. Let's go ahead and improve just a little bit, and we can use Illumin for gray coverage. Illumin has 2 new fragrances or flavors, excuse me. We have NN at 6 and NN at 8. These guys are absolutely beautiful for not only doing gray coverage on a guest who's sensitive, maybe gray coverage on a guest who loves to mention, but how about just going through and doing a light, soft, neutral root smudge, a light, soft, neutral, just a blending around the hairline. So we're going to go ahead and think of Illumin as, again, it gives you 100% gray coverage, but we're going to think about that as natural coverage. We might see a little bit of dimension floating through there. I'm not looking for that guest that's looking for that solid deposit for that gray coverage, but more of a natural blending to the gray. Now, guys, I'm going to back up a little bit and I'm going to still focus on Illumin, but I want you to look at the colors. And if you're not familiar, GY at 6, which means gray, capital G, lower y at 6, which means gray, are GY at 9. Again, gray at a 9, gray at a 6. These guys are fantastic as gray and silver toner colors, absolutely beautiful. But what about that gray enhancement guest? That guest who wants to continue to stay gray, they don't want to see yellowing, and they just want to make sure that it stays in a controlled environment. So let's not forget gray enhancement when it comes to Illumin as well. Again, GY at 6, GY at 9, beautiful all over glossing, beautiful low lighting, go through, build dimension back in. But even though the Illumin NN at 6 and NN at 8 is great for that natural gray coverage, think about that gray enhancement or that guest that wants to remain in the natural state and just reduce their yellowing. So let's go ahead and add gray enhancement to the menu. So now we have gray enhancement, gray reduction, standard gray coverage, men's lunchtime special, fashion gray coverage, solid and resistant gray coverage. So guys, we're really building up an opportunity to support our new gray business. Also with gray, we have in our blue Colorance can, we have our single end series. This provides blending with a soft line of demarcation. So this is where the guest who comes in, they want to just very simply, maybe they're an every 8-week haircut and they just want to soften that gray in between. So Colorance is wonderful with the single end series, very simply for that gray blending. So again, 50% or less gray, very soft line of demarcation, wears itself back out to the next coloring. This is for the guest who does not want the commitment to get rid of her gray, but she doesn't mind seeing it disappear for a little bit. Then we have our Colorance Cover Plus. This is where you're going to find those fantastic Add Illuminated series, but this is where you're going to improve what the blue can does. So the blue and pink can be mixed together. So that say in my blue can, I'm going to pick 7 kg. In my pink can, I'm going to pick 7 double N. I'm going to mix these guys in equal parts with my pink developer to get 75% or less solid gray coverage. So very simply, Colorance by itself, just single end series, 50% or less blending. I want more than that. I take my target color in my blue can, my gray coverage in my pink can, mix them together in equal parts, use my pink developer, and now I created a solid line of demarcation with improved gray coverage. So again, single end, blue can blending, end series, double end series, excuse me, in my pink can, coverage with a solid line of demarcation. Don't forget those beautiful Add illuminated shades, more dimension when it comes to smudging, low lighting, and again, going in with impact gray coverage, 75% or less in your Colorance Cover brand. Again, when we're using Colorance Core, we're going to mix up to, or we're going to use it for up to that 50% gray. So let's say Mrs. Jones has 100% gray. We use this single end series on it. The challenge that we're going to have, it's not going to cover everything completely. You're going to get a beautiful reduction, but you're still going to see some of that gray peeking out. So it's best if you're going to use this blue can to keep that guest below 50% gray. As usual, 2-in-1 mixing ratio, 25-minute processing time for maximum coverage, maximum durability, and make sure you use the brush tip on the bottle. How I'm going to go ahead and mix this guy is right here. So up to 30% gray, 5 mLs of my N, 15 of my target color. But once I get to that 30 to 50% gray, I'm going to do equal parts. So this equal parts is going to go in again and reduce that 50% gray, soft line of demarcation, nothing hard about it. Just a simple way to either introduce it or again, for that guest who's not committed to that return every 3 to 4 weeks. Next guy we have is Colorance Cover Plus. I'm going to give you my consultation thought on this, guys. And I think about this as Topchic that doesn't lift. If my guest wants full-blown 30-minute, 45-minute solid gray coverage, I'm going right for Topchic. But what about that guest who really doesn't require lift? Maybe they're not super coarse. They don't want ammonia on their hair. They want something a little bit softer. I'm going to go right in with Colorance Cover Plus. Beautiful opportunities with your double N mixed in with your target color with Colorance are using the Add Illuminated by themselves. Absolutely gorgeous gray coverage. Again, think about it. Topchic that doesn't lift. I get a little bit less, 75% or less gray coverage. Would I use this on 100% fine-haired guest? Absolutely, without a problem. If my guest has a little bit more substance to their hair, stick to 75% or less gray. Again, 2-to-1 mixing ratio. This guy we're going to use in a bowl as opposed to a bottle, but anytime the double N or the At series is present for gray, the timing is 30 minutes. Go ahead if you notice this is a thicker lotion. What you're really going to enjoy about this very simply is that aspect of it mixes and applies just like Topchic. So fantastic for that. Here's our ratio for that. We're going to go ahead when the guest is 50 to 75% gray or 75 to 100, very, very fine hair. We're going to go ahead and mix 10 mLs, excuse me. And that is a typo there. That should be just the double N series and 10 mLs of your fashion shade. So again, we mix our pink and our blue can together. We're going to use our pink developer for that targeted end result. Remember, 30-minute timing to that. So far what we explored is we went from, again, our gray enhancement, which will be with your Illumin, your GY at 9, GY at 6. But let's not forget our express toning. Our express toning 9 and 10 silver is also fantastic for gray enhancement. I might not want to sit for 15 to 20 minutes with Illumin, but I do want to reduce some yellow. 9 or 10 silver is absolutely fantastic on the gray for enhancement. If you're from old school like me and you love Rue Fancy Florence white minks, put 1 drop of pure pigment blue in that 9 or 10 silver, and you'll have that beautiful pearl look that white minks used to create on that great hair. So let's not forget gray enhancement, your GY at 9, GY at 6 in Illumin, or your express toning. Don't forget when it comes to your gray blending, we have our Men Reshade. We have our Illumin double N series. We're going to call it coverage, but we're going to think of it in more natural coverage. Don't forget the single N in Colorance, and then getting all the way up into a solid line of demarcation comes with your Colorance Cover Plus. So guys, what an expanded menu we had there. We have reduction, we have enhancement, we have standard gray coverage, solid gray coverage, resistant gray coverage, men's gray coverage. We have a lot to offer when it comes to gray. So next, let's go ahead and explore full gray coverage. So guys, this is going to be a repeat of some of the things that we just discussed. So bear with me. I'm not going to spend too much time on there, but let's go ahead and look at this slide. This is a great slide to take a shot of because, again, it helps you remember where things live. Our single N for, again, our fine to normal hair. Our NA, that's in that cool direction. Remember, it loves to be with 20 volume. Our at illuminated, that's, again, where the at sign is in the formulation with an N, fashion gray coverage. And then our resistant or our solid gray coverage from the double N. So since we explored that, let's go in and talk about volumes of developers. So guys, this is extremely important. 10 volume does not improve gray coverage in the Goldwell system. 10 volume does not improve gray coverage in the Goldwell system. If my gray coverage is not what I want to be, extend your timing. Change your N or your double N, but don't reduce to 10 volume. 10 volume doesn't fill up all the space in the hair, which means it doesn't create full durability. So full durability with gray coverage comes with 20 volume, 30 volume, and 40 volume. You can reduce to 10 volume to go darker as long as gray is not present in the hair. But again, here's Marge's theory. If it's not broke, don't fix it. If you like what 10 volume gray coverage does, go right ahead and use it. But remember, you'll get more durability with other volumes of developer. So again, gray coverage in Goldwell doesn't come from the developer. It comes from your N series and your timing. Reducing to 10 volume just creates more of a demi-permanent as opposed to a permanent effect to the hair. Remember, 20 volume does the best with the NA series, keeping that guest at that existing level, or maybe going 1 number lighter. That's where 20 volume does its job. 20 volume is also necessary when my guest is more than 80% gray. Once my guest hits 80% gray, we're worried about deposit, not lift, and that's where 20 volume helps with that optimum gray coverage. Remember, optimum also comes with the use of the letter N. It provides a level. 30 volume is for 2 levels of lift. 40 volume is for 3 and 4 levels of lift, all depending on texture, density, and porosity. And again, they're all 30 to 45-minute timing. Please remember, reducing to 10 volume is not bad. It just is not the most durable. So again, if we're looking for the best gray coverage, 20 volume, 30 volume, and 40 volume. So for all of us who are just not new, are newer to the illuminated series, please remember that 10 volume or 40 volume is not required with this system. So if my guest is more than 50% gray, I'm going to go in with 20 volume and my illuminated series. If my guest is less than 50% gray, I'm going to go in with 30 volume and the illuminated series. So when I look at these two guys here, that's just to help keep that fashion tone alive. Remember, the gray coverage is coming from the inside of the hair. We're looking at the target cover being as bright as it wants to be. So again, when we're looking for our illuminated series, we're going to use 20 volume or than 50% gray, and we're going to use 30 volume on less than 50% gray. Give me 1 second here. I just have someone keeps calling me on my personal phone. Let me have that stop. Okay, thank you so much, guys. She's that type of friend. If you don't answer the first time, she calls 15 different ways on 10 different phones. So I do apologize for that. So again, exiting out of that, remember our gray coverage chart. Here's what we learned. we're not going to use any more than 35 mLs into the formulation. So we're not going to use more than 35 mLs of N or double N. We're going to add 5 mLs of a B or a G for shine. Remember, we gave some examples there. 35 mLs of 5NN, 5 mLs of 5B. Don't forget to put your pure pigments in the formulation as well. So again, we're going to go ahead and put 2 drops of yellow in with our single N. We're going to be brave and put 2 drops of yellow, 2 drops of orange in with our double N, or maybe 3 drops of yellow and a drop of orange. So go ahead and just be jumping into it and looking for that extra shine when just put a signature on your formula. There we go. So again, this is our standard gray coverage chart. Remember, NA can be used alone. Max amount in the formulation is 35 mLs of the N or the double N. Timing for everything but the double N series can be extended to 45 minutes. Standard timing is 30. Up to 45 is just going to improve your gray coverage by absorption. Don't forget to color balance. This is very simply a way that we keep reds, browns, and blondes healthy. So the last thing Goldwell wants you to do is pull that N series through to the hair that doesn't require any more deposit. So if I continually bring N series through the mid shaft to ends by just watering down my Topchic formula, waiting to the last 5 minutes, I'm actually creating that extra brown on the mid shaft to ends. So Goldwell's theory is brown only needs to be on the hair one time, and that's when we lift. So let's go ahead and use the N series at the regrowth, but let's go ahead and just use Colorance target color on the mid shaft to ends. So as an example, my regrowth might be Topchic 7N, 7 kg. My mid shaft to ends is 7 kg only. Remember, every time you bring brown through the mid shaft to ends and gray is not present, we brown out our formulation. So that's one thing we have to know. No gray in the hair, no N in the formula. It will act as a double brown and it will brown out your end result. So always keep that in mind. Color balancing is one way to keep gray coverage fresh on your mid shaft to ends. Now let's not forget that guest who lives in the ammonia-free world or the sustainable world. We have Nectia, which is our permanent, very simply ammonia-free hair color. What we want to share with you about Nectia, it is absolutely no different in formulation or conversation in Topchic. Single N, double N, 35 mLs max in the formulation. Voluminous developers do the same thing. The only difference with Nectia is the base in which it lives. So the base in which Nectia lives, very simply, is argan oil and intralipids. So this is all a healthy food-based color. Argan oil goes in and feeds the hair. Interlipids are moisture for the hair, and they balance out the ammonia-free conversation. So very simply, this is a guest who maybe has scalp sensitivity. We can go the direction of a lumen, but remember, that's a little bit more natural. Or we can take the guest in the direction of Nectia with a patch test to help see if we can improve their gray coverage from there. Remember, this is 91% natural origins. This is, again, that guest who wants that little bit more sustainable lifestyle, or they want ammonia-free gray coverage. As I shared with you before, everything with this system is exactly like it is with Topchic. All the ratios, all the rules and regulations, all the timings. The only thing you're not going to find in the Nectia series is that high fashion gray coverage. So make sure that you're confident and add some pure pigments into this guy. I love Nectia for 1,001 reasons. I just think Nectia tends to be a little less shiny than Topchic. So I always bump up with 1 or 2 extra drops of my pure pigment in this formula. So I might be as high as 3 to 4 drops in my single N series of Nectia. But very simply, I always add some pure pigments in here, even if it's just for shine. So Nectia is identical to Topchic, but it's our ammonia-free conversation. When we go ahead and use Nectia for gray coverage, please remember color balancing is still the same conversation. We use Nectia on the new growth as our ammonia-free option, and then Colorance on the mid shaft to ends as our ammonia-free option. So we can consider this an entire gray coverage ammonia-free service. So guys, let's go back to that menu. So now we have gray enhancement. Now we have standard gray coverage. Now we have ammonia-free gray coverage. Then we have gray reduction, men's lunchtime special. We have fashion gray coverage. We have we did the men's lunchtime special. We have solid gray coverage, and then we have resistant gray coverage. Holy heck, I think we've really expanded our menu when it comes to gray. So let's just look at one more thing, and that's pre-softening. Now, guys, we should never pre-soften an entire head. If we pre-soften an entire head, we're using the wrong formulation or we're using the wrong timing. This is meant for the guests that, okay, oh my God, confused, which one? So go back, which one was confusing? You can come off mute if you want to go ahead and talk. Sometimes the typing is a little bit longer than the conversation. Okay, you're new to this. All right, so go back. So what's confusing is the necktie portion of it, the ammonia-free. Okay, the whole color series, I get it. Okay. Are we good or we need to go back? Because again, you're more than welcome to come off mute if you have a question.
Hit your unmute button, Janine.
Thank you. I didn't get to see, I don't have the whole thing. Okay. Sandy, are you good? And you can go ahead, if you have a separate conversation, you can go ahead and reach out if there's anything I can help with this.
Sounds perfect. I'll
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And again, I'll go ahead and help you with any conversation that we need. Didn't mean to confuse, but I hope I'm giving some good information. Okay, so pre-softening. Pre-softening happens when I have a guest who has a gray patch or a gray area, maybe a birthmark, maybe an area that just wants to cover differently from the rest. So again, we're not going to pre-soften the whole head. We're going to pre-soften areas. I tend to wear my hair up all the time. I want to pre-soften my nape just because I want to, when I pull my hair up, I put so much stress on my hair. I always feel that my grays are popping out back there. So pre-softening again are patches. Pre-softening is also done with tint and water. So I'm going to go ahead and mix an equal amount of N series to water and use that as my pre-softening. But here's an extra special, guys. Let's just say that I don't have a great deal of N in my formula. I can pre-soften with a G or a K. So please know that you don't always have to have an N to pre-soften. You can pre-soften with a G or a K. So as an example, what I do is I pick my color that I'm going to use, an N, a gold, or a copper. I'm going to mix it equal parts with water at the level I want to be, or maybe one number lighter if I'm concerned. I don't want to see any depth on that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix it in a bowl, and it's going to be kind of like almost unset pudding. I'm going to take it, I'm going to use my tint brush, and I'm going to massage it into the gray patch. I'm going to allow it to sit on the hair for 10 to 15 minutes. So it says processing time here. I'll get to back to that in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and let my pre-softening sit on that gray patch for 10 to 15 minutes. If the gray is not super resistant, I can kind of scream it down to 5. The only time I would leave it on for 15 minutes if I'm 100% positive it's resistant. So right now, fine hair, I can go ahead, equal parts, massage it in, leave it on for 5. A little bit more coarse hair, equal parts, leave it on for 10. Super resistant hair, leave it on for 15. After I go ahead and process it, I'm going to wipe it down, and then I'm going to apply my formulation on top of it. Now it says here that I can go ahead and apply to resistant areas and apply my retouch directly on top of it. I'm going to put a 3A in there, or a caveat in there. Do not do this without wiping the formulation off your hair. So let's say you're pressed for time and you need to layer it directly on top of it. It will help, but it works better if your pre-softener sits there for a length of time. We wipe it off and then apply the color formula on top. But if you're stressed for time and you're going to layer it on top of each other, make sure once you apply it, you go back with the towel, wipe it off a little bit before your second color goes on top. Remember, 2 things can't occupy the same space. So don't have that saturated with our pre-softening and try and put the regular color on top without making extra space. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, you could put the pre-softening on the hair, time it, or you could put the pre-softening on the hair, wipe, and use the regular color on top. Pre-softening, time it, wipe, color on top. Pre-softening, wipe, color directly on top, no timing. The first one with the timing will give you better pre-softening. The second one is just a time saver for behind the chair. So that ends the conversation of what happens or what we can offer, gray coverage wise. The next thing we're going to look at is what we're going to send home with our guest. Please, please don't forget your Color Revive root powder. These guys are absolutely wonderful. They're used like a regular cosmetic. There's a sponge at the bottom. We massage it into the area and very simply allow it to be our blender. This will hold on for maybe 1 or 2 days. It can shampoo out. Sometimes it gives a little bit better durability to here, but you can see for the swatch, this does a wonderful blending of the regrowth area. Please don't forget the mid shaft ends can be taken care of with our color conditioner. If you're afraid of the intensity of the color conditioner, go ahead and mix it in with the Dual Senses 60-second treatment. It makes a beautiful daily add to their coloring services. So just wonderful for that. Don't forget maintenance and styling. Everything the guest takes home helps support that coloring that's on their hair, especially UV protectants. So there's 2 things I want to add to this conversation. If your guest is remaining in a natural state and we want to help keep that yellowing at bay, please go ahead and make sure that this guest takes a thermal protectant home. Anytime a 100% gray or silver or white hair guest starts to blow dry their hair or add heat, they raise the cuticle, they show this raw keratin or protein, and it starts to yellow. So make sure that guest is taking home some kind of thermal protectant to keep the cuticle down, to keep that yellowing at bay. Hugely important to that. Also, a thermal protectant is essential for any guest that does any kind of blow dry thermal work on top of gray coverage. Again, just keeping that cuticle closed help keeps the gray active. So with that, guys, I want to thank you for your past 90 minutes, excuse me. I hope we covered everything possible. We created a gray menu. We looked at hair as a whole, talked about texture, density, porosity, what lives inside the hair. We did shades and tones. We talked about different formulations, different services that we can do to help polish and cleanse the hair. We talked about some retail products. We talked about pre-softening. So hopefully in that 90 minutes, we covered some great information. Sarah, thank you so much. Sandy, is there anything that you would like to add? I know a great deal of these guests are yours. So if you'd like to share with us any thoughts on the program.
I just want to clarify one thing.
Mhm.
When we're pre-softening and you say wipe it off, I've always taught to press. So we're now wiping it off. I just want to be clear.
What you want to do is just make sure that there's no product sitting on the surface of the hair. So if we wipe it, if we press it, as long as there's no product resting that we can physically see when we go over the next application.
Okay. Yep. Okay. That I just wanted to clarify that. So
thank you, Sandy,
awesome.
for that.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, I want to thank you so much. If there's no questions, oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Kara. Great information. I appreciate that. Thank you. And again, guys, have happy holidays. Thank you for spending this last 90 minutes with me to make sure that you understand gray coverage a little bit different. I hope you guys see an expanded menu and expanded opportunity and maybe capture some of those guests back that left us to keep their hair in a natural state, but we want to go ahead and take care of that silvering or that yellowing to the hair. So guys, thank you so much. Have a great holiday and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep, go right ahead.
So I was taught, this is a little off the topic, but I was taught by an educator down here in Charlotte that the,
Did we lose you?
I'm sorry, I can't see if they're on or off. I can't see that.
Christy? Christy, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Welcome back, Christy.
I'm sorry. So I was taught, I'm pretty sure up in New York State that the Colorance Cover Plus is demi-permanent and the Colorance is semi-permanent. Is that correct? Because down here, they taught it differently.
Okay, so semi and demi are truly a marketing term. So how I want you to focus on, if I put permanent color on the hair, I permanently alter the structure of the hair. I'm raising the cuticle and I'm creating warmth. That's what permanent color means. Demi-permanent and semi-permanent either means it closes or opens the cuticle. It's just talking about what it does to the structure, not what happens to durability. So demi-permanent and semi-permanent coloring very simply is the same thing. Demi-permanent opens the hair a little bit, semi-permanent closes it. Temporary color does nothing. So if I think about permanent, semi-permanent, and demi-permanent, temporary, I'm just looking at the marketing terms to what happens to the cuticle. Permanent permanently alters the structure, demi raises a little bit, semi closes a little bit, and temporary does nothing. So if we're thinking about it in those terms, that's what I want you to think about, that the terms truly mean, is the effect it has onto the hair.
Okay, that makes way better sense. Perfect. Good to know.
Hey, thanks. I like when I do that kind of stuff. Make a little
It
bit
was
more sense
excellent.
out of things.
Yep.
Christy, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed the program.
Thank you. I enjoyed the class a lot.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Will you be teaching any other classes like high lift blondes or any of those things?
I take the request from the distributor and they pass them on to me, and I accept almost everything I can unless I'm booked at that time. So
Okay,
they'll certainly,
Sandy.
so they'll certainly let you know if I'm back.
Perfect.
Excellent, guys. Thanks so much.
Bye,
Okay,
Sandy.
Natalie,
everyone.
Sandy, we good for everything? And I want to thank you guys so much for letting me take this program over.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Everyone have a great day, and we'll say goodbye. Oh, I'm going to go back on camera. I forgot it was off there for a minute. Get her back on there. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you. Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate the comment. Thank you.